Hello and welcome. I am your host, JP John Poz from the two-man power trip of wrestling. Of course, joining me is the former ECW and WCW World Tag Team Champion, one of the greatest minds and bookers ever in the history of the business, the Games Master, the Taskmaster, the Devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
Excellent, JP. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Have you been keeping up with the latest, just as far as what's going on? I wanted to mention this to you as well. AEW, Tony Khan becoming a character and getting beat up on the show.
Yeah,
Have you seen that?
yeah, I sure did.
What did you think about
I
that?
sure did. I called it 2 weeks ago that he become a character.
So, what do you think about
Uh,
that?
I could see where he could be a character very easily. Are we getting into a cycle here now where we're just repeating shit?
With AEW or just wrestling in general?
Wrestling in general. Let's go back. Uh, Eric Bischoff
Yep.
did a great job. Vince did a great job. I mean, there's always a heel authority figure, right? A babyface authority figure. Do you ever see the commissioner from the NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball get involved in this shit?
Not like that. No. Nope.
Anything. Because if it was, I understand everybody knows it's prearranged. Everybody. But if you're wanting to the WWE, the reason why that bloodline drew so well, you could go and watch that like a movie because it all made sense. If you own a company and a guy punches you, what's the first thing you do?
It's fired.
Hello? We're the only place in the world where we can beat the shit out of the boss?
Apparently. Yeah.
No, I mean, does that, I mean, I, I got fired when I was a kid. In the summer, I was working at a slate yard, taking 110-pound bags of slate out of the freight car. They would come in with a tow motor, blow the gas in my face. And the guy said to me, I want you to work overtime. So I work overtime. And the next day, I go to work. He says, take tomorrow off. You got too many hours. So I wasn't going to get overtime. So I shoved him. I lost my job. Does it make any sense at all? At first, when Eric did it first, Eric was unique. They told a very long term story before he turned. Right?
Yep.
Vince had Austin, or Austin had Vince. I'm not sure. I guess they're trying something, but uh, do you think we're? Do you starting to see? Here's another thing. Remember when I said, and this is no knock to anybody. Remember when I said when Cody wins, who's he going to wrestle?
Yes.
Has the ratings stayed up like they were?
No, I think they went down a tick.
A tick.
Yep.
Yeah. But there's a lot of reasons why. The NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. But do you feel like there's a little slowdown?
Yeah, it's kind of like that Vince mentality where it's not mania season, so you take your pedal or you take your foot off the gas, take your foot off the pedal a little bit. I feel like it's that Vince mentality, which I don't like. You got to keep going.
The thing is, in my estimation, they did such a magnificent job. And I kept on saying when we were talking, what are you going to do after Cody wins? They got there from heat, right? And did it so well that they got to the point right?
Yep.
Is it like we're in limbo? There's no heat.
Seems like that.
Yeah.
Because he's fighting AJ Styles as a pay per view. AJ Styles won a few matches in a row to get the match, but it doesn't feel like it's a Roman Reigns Cody match. It doesn't feel like it's Rock versus Cody. It's like it's AJ. It's a step down. There's not a lot of heat there.
And the other thing is Gunther. I thought the first week after WrestleMania, he would have slaughtered people. It's
Yep.
almost like there's we're going to take some time off here. And maybe it's the thing to do because of all the playoffs games they're against. Why put out your best stuff? But I know from experience, you let something get so hot and it cools off, it's hard to heat that back up again.
Yep. Totally agree.
Yeah.
They're cooling it down too much. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then AEW, on the other hand, they had a good pay per view, according to everybody that watched. They said Dynasty was a good pay per view, and they came back with the TV show 3 days later. Dynamite might have been the worst wrestling TV show like I've ever seen. Like as far as just putting everything together, they had audio issues the whole time. There was echo; you couldn't hear the promos. There was a promo where a woman cut where she didn't use the microphone; she just talked directly, and you couldn't hear a word she said. It was, and then the Tony Khan thing at the end, that was icing on the cake. His facial expressions, his acting, him getting beat up. It was like Dixie Carter all over again. Because remember, they did it with Dixie Carter when the Dudley Boys and Bully Ray Dudley beat her up.
Right.
It was just
Right.
felt like TNA all over again.
Hey, we're wrestling fans. We both make it, and I really believe they will. But I'll tell you the thing that was the glaring thing to me, the production, the difference. It is huge, isn't it? It's almost
Yes,
something that you may not be able to overcome.
man, and it just looked like amateur hour. It looked like center stage WCW. Last night as far as AEW and then WWE. I mean, it looks like $1 million every week. It just night and day production value.
And I think that maybe it's TBS or TNT production teams. Not knocking them either, but they're not well known to being great on camera work on wrestling.
Yep. And the audio was terrible. It was you couldn't hear them cutting promos. It was an echo. The announcers had an echo. Like that kind of stuff, you got to fix within 5 minutes of the show. You can't have that go on for 2 hours.
And I'll tell you another thing. Before they did that angle with Jack Perry and Tony, did you think there was no that they tipped off when they went to uh, the commentary desk with Excalibur and Taz? Did it feel like they knew something? They were projecting something was going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they
Yeah,
tipped it off.
yeah. Well, let's hope. We're all wrestling fans. Whether it's AEW, TNA, WWE, whatever it is, we get a assortment of different flavors and colors and everything else. So let's go for that.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like they had the talent, they could put on a good pay per view. It's just like weekly television. They struggle production. They got to do something to up the production value. And then even Swerve as the champion, he had a 20-minute match against the TV champion, and it was a 50-50 match. The guy just won the title against Samoa Joe. So you figure they would treat him better as champion, but he just was treated as just another guy. So the booking needs to be stepped up again. The creative is not good.
He's one of the most talented guys I've ever seen.
Swerve.
Yeah, without question. They made him the first black AEW champ. He didn't come out of the box like Muhammad Ali, did he?
Nope.
Remember when Ali won his? You don't remember after Ali beat Liston, he was knocking everybody out.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't even stand up to him. He would dance around them for a round and not throw a punch and his hands down by his side. Go back and watch the Cleveland Williams fight. Unbelievable. That's how you get guys over. If you want to get a guy over, it's a simple mathematical equation. Do you realize that? How simple it is?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. What's the first thing they don't do?
Don't do 50-50 matches with guys low on the card if you're the champion.
No, you don't take that many bumps.
Okay, makes sense.
You don't oversell, and you don't let anybody pin you for a 2 count.
Wow. Okay, I like that.
Because if you do that, you're just like everybody else. 1, 2, go. Save it till that match means something. We become so cookie cutter. So it's so monkey see, monkey do sometimes. You know, when you think of guys that used to get heat, right? And I know this is way in the past, but you go Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, Abdullah Butcher, Sheik, Mark Lewin, Terry Funk. What do they have in common? They didn't work like everybody else.
Yep, had an awesome look, and had an all. Their gimmick is awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were just they're awesome. Yeah.
And I hate to see them blow this with Swerve because I really think he's one of the best talents out there, bar none. He can hold his own with anybody.
When you look at AEW, then you go to WWE, and I feel like okay, Roman's not there. Rock is going to be gone for a while. What is Heyman and the Bloodline going to do? And I feel like they've really excelled over the last few weeks. And I was looking at some YouTube numbers. I mean, they Solo Sikoa is having a million hits on the certain angles they're doing, so it is resonating with the crowd and the fans because it's like, what is Solo doing? He brings in Tamatanga, who's obviously Haku's son, who's now a member of the Bloodline, but who is he answering to? And Heyman, his facial expressions are so great. He goes to call Roman Reigns. They take his phone, they squash his phone. They're making him put up the one. I mean, his acting. I feel like is maybe underrated or underappreciated. Heyman does a great job at selling the bloodline without really doing too much. I feel like it's like the perfect addition.
Paul is from the Lee Strasberg acting school. Less is more. You know, Marlon Brando, the great actors came from Lee Strasberg's acting school in New York City. So I'm sure Paul picked up on that. He look at the difference between Tony's acting and Paul's.
Yeah.
Less is more.
He was so good too, like with his reactions, facial expressions. Like he's shocked, he's angry, he's upset. They take his phone. He doesn't know how to react. You know, he's like confused. Like he's very good. If you just watch him and watch nothing else, you can understand what's going on in the scene.
He has been very instrumental in that Bloodline story from the beginning. And now with Roman and Rock gone, I would say, would you agree with me that he is the centerpiece right now?
Yeah. Yep.
Directing
While they're trying to
traffic.
pull up Solo. Yep.
Yeah, he's directing traffic. and just little things he says, you go, oh wow. You know what got me about that when they pulled up, uh, Sokoa pulled up in the car with, and then he walks up to Paul. Do you know what got me there?
Which one? Or what got you?
Well, what got me was when he got out of the car. We're used to seeing Sokoa with a hood on, right? Baggy pants. You know, he had a Monty suit, and all Paul said was nice threads. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yep.
Then you said, holy shit, something's different. A lot of people wouldn't have gotten that
Yep.
unless Paul said nice threads. They're really hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, very small thing, but it's big because it shows that he's not the enforcer guy anymore. He's trying to be a lead guy. He's wearing a nice suit now.
Right. He's trying to be the travel chief. It's that simple.
Yep.
I mean, and Paul is directing traffic. I'm sure a lot of this is Paul. Uh, I think he's terrific. I think that, again, his whole shtick is like a modern day film. It isn't like, I'm going to kill you, rah, 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 and guys, when they're selling, look like they're acting like they're Wile E. Coyote in the Roadrunner when the anvil falls on the Roadrunner. You know what I mean? On his head. And his legs go up and his arms go out. Yeah, doesn't make sense.
When you look at Heyman, like you said, he's kind of the centerpiece right now with no Rock, no Roman. He can kind of carry the load, right? You know what I mean? He has that type of energy or that type of charisma as far as the crowd is concerned. I mean, they're buying into him.
Absolutely. I mean, Paul has an aura about him that he's way overconfident in his real life than he should be. Do you know what I mean? No
Yep.
one else, no one ever, I never hear anybody say, and they don't even talk about it on commentary about him being overweight.
Right.
So that's a kudos to him.
You don't hear many people say he's bald and overweight, even though he obviously is, but you don't really pay attention to it.
Because he's so good at his job.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you look at him with the bloodline, it goes back. I mean, it goes back a long time. He was managing the Samoan SWAT team in NWA and WCW. So I mean, he has a long term. And not only is it believable, it actually is true. So it's a believable relationship with the bloodline, but it's actually true. He goes all the way back. Rikishi, the Samoan Savage, Samu. I mean, all these guys that he managed before. So he knows the family. He knows the lineage, knows the legacy. Used to take pictures of the wild Samoans back in
Right.
Madison Square Garden. So his believability actually comes from truth. He actually is like a longtime friend and ally of the bloodline.
Right. Right. And it's what we said. You know what else, too? He's a centerpiece with that bloodline. Here we have the Samoans, and now a Tongan, and then we have a white Jewish guy in the group.
Yep.
It's great.
But believable, very believable. And obviously, he has a
Yeah,
long history with them. So he's been with
yeah,
them, God, since the 80s. So, I mean, it's
yeah.
been a long time with him. Plus, you add in the fact that he's just he's a great talker, but the way he is with Roman is so good. Like he loves the guy. He stares at him. He waits for him to tell him what to do. I mean, his
Right.
just the way he acts with Roman is great because it's not like, oh, I'm the boss. He's his wise man. He's his special counsel. He's there to listen to whatever he says, and then he goes out and does it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a unique gimmick.
yeah. It's excellent.
It's like the consigliere, if you will. He's like the number
And
two that, but he doesn't get his hands dirty. He's the one that contacted people to go get their hands dirty.
I'm waiting to see when they're going to expose Jacob Fatu.
I was reading today that he may be making his debut pretty soon.
Yeah, I heard that too, but I heard that 3 weeks ago.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And they took out Jimmy Uso. I kind of figured he was injured anyway, but they took him out, so he'll be out for a little bit. Reigns is
Right.
out for a little bit. Be interesting to see when Jimmy Uso comes back, Roman comes back. Are they going to be feuding with Solo and Tama and maybe Jacob Fatu?
Yeah, they'll drop those breadcrumbs when I believe when they find out when Uso is going to be back.
Yep. When you look at the what's going on with Punk, I mean, sorry, not Punk, with Heyman and Roman. Roman obviously is going to be gone for a little bit. We saw them embrace at the end of Mania, and Roman's been, basically on vacation. He's filming a movie that he was seen in Walt Disney World on vacation with his family. So he's doing other things right now. But when he comes back, obviously, he's going to be interesting to see where Roman lands with Heyman, right? I mean, that'll be interesting too, because if Heyman is with Solo, is he still going to be with Roman? Like, who's the tribal chief? So that'll be an interesting thing too when he comes back.
That's really good. They built this. That will be another. It'll be almost like Brock and Roman when Paul had to make a decision, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be good. And then Brock's coming back, correct?
Apparently, yes. Triple H
Yeah,
was asked, and he said he still works here. He still has a contract. He's still a member of the roster. He said he's just being Brock Lesnar, aka in hiding, hunting and fishing and being a butcher up in Canada.
yeah.
With Roman, he obviously did Paul Heyman's Hall of Fame speech as well. Everybody was talking about that Hall of Fame speech. They loved it. Did you see the Hall of Fame speech from Paul Heyman this
Yes,
year
I
as he was
did.
inducted
Yeah,
in? What did you think of it?
yeah. Uh, Perfect place to do it, Philadelphia, right?
Yep.
The Trenton ECW. It was brilliantly done. Paul is excellent.
Roman inducted him, which I kind of figured he would. He kind of maybe not the perfect guy, but he's been managing him for the last 3 years, and he's, obviously it's a huge company, and they want to put their guy with whoever's being inducted. So it makes sense, right? That Roman was inducting him over somebody else.
Oh, and who else could have done it?
I don't know if people wanted like an ECW guy like RVD or something, but Roman's more perfect for it.
I love RVD, but Paul and Roman have accomplished a lot together, and that's who should have inducted them.
Yep. And with Paul and Roman too, they have such like a good close bond. Roman considers him a huge help to him in the business. He says he learned so much from him. So that's a key factor too. It's like they both get from each other. Heyman, it's very relevant in the island of relevancy with Roman, but Roman is learning a lot from Heyman as well.
Yeah, Paul is very good at that. Talking to guys, pumping them up. He's very good at it. One of the best I've ever seen.
The modern day Newt Rockney, so they say.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yep.
did you like the speech just as far as like the Triple H stuff? That was some of the stuff that I saw that got a little bit of not heat online, but people were complaining like, he's got to kiss ass to Triple H, he got to kiss ass to Stephanie. Did you get that? Did you feel that at all or no?
They've given him carte blanche. You don't thank somebody that you work for that gives you an open hand. Maybe because these people that complain couldn't do what Paul does. You got a multi-billion-dollar company. Everybody is under a microscope except Paul and Roman and that's because of Paul. You don't think you should thank these guys? Acknowledge me, right?
Yep.
I don't understand that one. Do you?
No, I felt like people, I don't know, they always want to complain about something. I feel like maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I guess the only thing was Triple H said not to mention him during the speech. Of course, Heyman which is pure Heyman, will do the opposite of whatever you tell him to do.
Right.
So of course he
Right.
mentioned him in the speech.
Yeah, and I think Paul wants to be the boss, and he is doing an incredible job. I mean, anybody else? Could you imagine when what happened to Vince? That most companies would have crumbled, right? In
Yeah.
today's day and age, most companies would have been canceled.
Yep.
Hunter dug in there and pulled it out and had the most. Think about this. How many records did they set at WrestleMania? Attendance, T-shirts, whole line of stuff, right?
The gate. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, pretty crazy that he did that in a real bad uh, drop. Do you know what I'm saying? A drop in business. They could have been really. Their stocks could have went down to nothing. I mean, why wouldn't you thank a guy that saves the company? Again, I just don't understand people.
And he did kind of pump up Stephanie, who was there as well. Shockingly, she made a return to WWE, so he was pumping up Stephanie as well. Maybe kissing ass a little bit to Stephanie, saying he wishes his daughter was like her and stuff like that.
Well, I think that they're old time friends, right?
But do you remember that great story from many years ago? And it's on the Paul Heyman doc. So they have a Paul Heyman documentary that WWE put out a few years ago, which is really good. If anybody hasn't seen it, they have it on Peacock. Stephanie's interviewed for it, and she kind of is not very like she's complimentary of Paul, but she goes, "Man, he's so sneaky." When we used to be doing booking meetings and stuff, I'd have Raw on the phone, then they'd get off the phone, and I'd have had SmackDown on the phone. And she said, and Paul even supposedly got demoted for this, that he would sneak and he'd be on the conference call for Raw, even though he was running Smack. This is like, God, 17 years ago, but he was on the call when he wasn't supposed to be. So Stephanie figured out, like, I guess she could see who's on the phone, and she's like, "Who's there?" And he denied it. He denied it. So she showed proof to Vince that he was like eavesdropping on other people's phone calls. So she mentioned that and was kind of saying that he could be very sneaky. Like he's charming, but he's very sneaky. And she said, not the most honest person she's ever dealt with. So very funny stuff from Stephanie. So they have a path together that's maybe a little bit up and down.
Well, I don't think that that is any great revelation.
Right, right, of course.
I mean, go back to ECW. The ticket is in the mail. Just go to the airport. So
Yeah, and Shane Douglas had a great comment. I know Bully Ray had said it to the bunch of guys that he would say, "Oh, here's the tracking number of your check.
yeah,
I mailed it." So okay, let me write the number down. He writes it down. He goes, "Wait a second, that's too many numbers." He goes, just delete the last number." And then he's like, "Are you sure?" He goes,
yeah,
"Yeah."
yeah, yeah. So
So he's a bit of a bullshit artist sometimes.
we're not none of us are without sin.
Yes, true. Then with Stephanie saying that, obviously he was really on the calls that maybe he really supposedly, shouldn't have been on at that time period. So he's being a little bit sneaky.
Know what they're doing, so you don't start doing the same shit.
When you
Do
look
you know
at
what I mean?
Heyman oh yeah, yep. When you look at him and being a bullshit artist and all of this stuff, that hasn't hurt him at all. And almost people laugh it off. Have you noticed that? Like he'll lie and it's not even like people are mad at him. They just like laugh it off.
Yeah, it's part of Paul's charm.
Is that what it is? Is it just charm or is like he has that type of
Yeah,
way with people?
he's got that charm. He gets charm off. a dog off a meat wagon.
It always seemed that Triple H and Stephanie, this is many years ago, obviously times have changed. It did seem like they wanted to be in power, and then when Heyman was in power for booking and stuff, it's like they kind of didn't get him fired, but they kind of banished him to OVW for a while. So it's like there was always began kind of a roller coaster relationship with them, and Vince would always kind of bring back Paul.
And here's the thing: when you're young, things look completely different as you mature. They understand it's just business now, and they're lucky to have the asset Paul brings to the table. Where Paul is lucky enough to have them have their hands off of him and allow him to do almost anything he wants.
Yep. And if you look at Heyman and Vince, I mean, they have a long relationship stemming all the way back from maybe Vince being the financial, basically, well, not if he was or not, he was. He financially backed ECW for, so obviously he sees something in Paul and liked his product and liked his mind for the
Yeah,
business for many
yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he got Vince to pay for ECW to keep him in business.
Do you think that that was like a lifetime contract or something? Not that Paul doesn't deserve to be there. Obviously, he does. He's a Hall of Famer and a legend. But it was one of those things where he's around for a long time. Do you think there was some sort of tie-in with ECW and Vince and him saying, basically Vince saying, "Hey, you're going to work here forever."
I don't think he said you're gonna work here forever, but I think it was, hey, if I need you, I'll call you. And I'm sure he called him a bunch of times and ran things by him and paid him. Yeah.
Paul has said it, and numerous people have said it as well, that Vince is like like a funny quote that he says kind of behind the scenes about Heyman. I rather have him in the castle pissing out than out of the castle pissing in, kind of thing. So it's like he rather have Paul on
Yeah.
board rather than have him work for somebody else.
Right. Right. That makes a
Kind of a
lot of
good,
sense.
kind of a great compliment. I know it might not seem like it, but it's kind of a great compliment. I'd rather
It's
this guy
a
work for me.
yeah. It's a great compliment. Yeah.
Do you think when he was sent down to OVW all those years ago that there was supposed to be some sort of punishment? Because that's what he kind of intimated. That's what all everybody said. Because he got caught obviously on the phone and doing some other things that they didn't particularly like, but they didn't want to fire him. Do you think that's like a basically you're demoting him to OVW, or do you think you're sending him there to help these young guys that are eventually going to be in WWE?
Wait a minute. Let's put it this easy. We can answer this one easy. Where's
Okay.
Paul from?
New York.
Has businesses in New York City, right?
Yeah.
You send him to Kentucky or Ohio? It's that simple.
Yeah. He's being
They knew
punished.
he was going to be miserable. A Long Island Jewish boy going to Kentucky? Oh, come on.
It did create one of the greatest pictures of all time. Behind the scenes, OVW, Cornette, and Heyman smiling together, like laughing. So it did create a
Yeah.
great moment in time there for those two.
Yeah, they were good friends for a long time
Oh yeah,
before.
it's funny that
Yeah.
they both kind of hated WWE at one point. You know what I mean? Like they were both like, "Oh
Yeah.
God," but necessary evil. You want to make money, you're going to work for WWE.
Right. Right.
He gets brought back. They do the new ECW. Did you ever think that that return of ECW when they brought it back? Did you ever think of anything about it? Did you ever think it was going to be something good, or you knew it was going to be crap?
I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. How do you bring in that style and put it on TV, and then you're having Vince's matches with guys wearing bull's heads, Minotaur, right? And Paul has guys jumping out of balconies. Doesn't even seem like a fair fight.
As soon as the first match happened, when they really brought it back to TV, remember it was the Sandman versus the Zombie, who was just made up indie
Yeah.
character, literally a zombie. as soon as that happened, you knew this, like, okay, this is McMahonified, if you will. This is not going to be ECW.
Yeah, yeah.
With that, do you think that almost Paul going to be super frustrated? Like he's going to be so happy to bring it back ECW, and then they turn it into that.
Of course, it was frustrating. You know, he thought they were going to have it back again. You know what I mean? He didn't get it. Nothing to do.
Him and Vince apparently did have a backstage clash in 2006 over ECW. There was a December to Dismember pay per view, which is, according to a lot of people, the worst pay per view of all time. But he wanted Paul wanted CM Punk to win it. He didn't. I guess Lashley ends up winning the chamber match. Big Show is a big part of the show. I mean, he just wasn't happy with a lot of what was going on with ECW, and I guess it kind of, I don't know, it boiled to a head, and he got in a backstage argument with Vince. Then he got in another argument with Stephanie, and basically he kind of gets got. He's basically gone in 2006. I mean, they sent him to OVW, but he's basically gone. So it's one of those things where he creatively, I guess that could happen, right? Creatively, you and your boss don't see eye to eye, and you just have to lash it out with him, and then you have to leave and kind of do your own thing to come back and be reborn again.
Yeah, yeah. That's what happened with Paul.
When you look at Paul Heyman guys, right? The guys that are associated with him, who do you think is like the best Heyman guy, just as far as who do you associate most with Heyman?
Don't you have to go with Taz, Boo, Shane,
Well, I'm thinking
Sam,
I'm thinking WWE. Like, who do you associate most with him?
Roman Reigns?
But do you also love Brock Lesnar with him? I feel like that's like a very prototypical Heyman guy because he brought Lesnar up kind of, he's his first manager at WWE. He really got him over. Not that Lesnar can't cut promos, but you kind of need a strong guy if you're going to immediately have a main event act against a guy like The Rock. You know what I mean? He basically got pushed within 2 months. He's winning the title. So you need a guy who can really lend credibility to you on the mic.
Right. Uh, yeah, that was. I mean, Paul got Brock over. Brock got Paul over. It was a very unique relationship, but Paul has gone on to keep being successful. Well,
What do you think about CM Punk as a Paul Heyman guy? How do you think they work together?
I thought they worked very well. Very well. Well,
Do you like the dynamic between the two?
yeah, absolutely. I think Paul and him worked. It was like a hand in a glove. Worked brilliantly.
There was some other Heyman guys that didn't quite work out as well. Remember, he managed Curtis Axel for a little bit, which
Yeah,
is Kurt Hennig's son. Ryback for a little bit, that didn't quite work out. They were trying out Cesaro with him for a little bit, that quite didn't work out. They kind of put him back with Lesnar for a while, and obviously that was a huge success and led
yeah,
to some good business with them. But I do feel like all that led up to Roman, and this has been the perfect pairing. I mean, for 4 years now, basically, it's longer than three. It's almost 4 years he's been
yeah. I
managing him.
know.
So it's like, wow, like you don't think nowadays 4 years you could do something and last and still have it still be good and still have relevancy and still be like a good storyline. But it has kind of bucked that system, if you will, kind of proved that man, whatever they're doing, it's working between Roman and Paul.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, JP, let's close this up. I gotta get going.
All right, let's wrap this sucker up. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Two Man Power Trip. Kevin, what do you got going on in this crazy world?
Well, I just came back from Minneapolis. Had a wonderful time. I'd like to thank Dave and Frank. I had a great time. They had a great show. It was I did some signings, but they had a great wrestling show. I didn't see it all. I had to get back to catch a flight, but things are really popping for the wrestling business, so it's good for us.
Absolutely. And how about the book, Old School by L.A. Taylor as well?
Yeah. She's they've had some bites on it, I heard. So I heard that, uh, can't remember his first name, but Schwartz, who they produce movies, so kind of looking at it. So I don't know.
Scotty Schwartz?
No,
No.
I'll find out and tell you next week.
All right. Nice, because
Okay.
I know we always pump it up, so nice to have it get some
Yeah.
bites. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you right back here next week. Have a good one, folks.